It is Thursday, believe it or not, and it's 1 o'clock again on the East Coast. So it is another episode of the MSP initiative. I am joined today by a good friend in the industry. I know that we say that every week, but Dan Wensley, who's currently with Warranty Master, but Dan's been in the game for a long time. How you doing, Dan?
I'm well, George. I come by this gray hair, honestly. I'll tell you that much.
Was it better gray or bald? Which would you?
Well, you don't have to worry about getting a haircut during a pandemic as much as I do. So,
This is true. This is true. The good old razor blade just is as far as I need to go, right? My
right.
so I feel you. I do. How's so you're based out of Canada. Where in Canada are you?
I live in Toronto, but it's funny, George, all the businesses I've run have been in Canada, but outside of Toronto. So Level Platforms back in the day was out of Ottawa, which was a 4-hour drive. Passportal was out of Calgary, which was a 4-hour flight. And now we're Warranty Master headquartered in Vancouver. Which I'm out to every other week. Ended up getting a place out there as well. And we have a development office in Quebec as well.
Wow. So like hardcore Canada, which is good. You mentioned right before this that you just got on and off a plane.
My last flight, as many of us, was March 13th. I flew back from Vancouver on Friday, March 13th. We shut down the office over that weekend, George, and went 100% remote. And my first flight back to Vancouver to both check on my condo and we actually put some management team members back into the office last week. So we put about eight managers and directors who begged to get out of their home offices and into, so we opened up the office again to start to create, that process. But yeah, it was the first flight I'd been on in months, which has probably been 20 years at least since that's been the period of time between flights.
What's your airline of choice?
So since Passportal was in Calgary, I moved from Air Canada to WestJet. So WestJet's a big carrier up here in Canada, does a lot of the Toronto to West Coast trips. So I became their frequent flyer of choice program about 5 years ago, probably. So took WestJet out, and it's funny. I've been following, the airline industry and obviously the entire travel industry. The Canadian airlines will not sell middle seats. So, I was bumped up to the premium area anyway, but it's masked the whole time, no food or drink. It's a 4.5-hour flight, George, breathing through a mask. It's a new experience.
I mean, did they have there's been a couple of instances I hear where people are like, nope, not doing it. Have you run into that, or is
In
everybody
Canada, you're not allowed. I mean, in Canada, it is mandated. The safest place I've felt since the pandemic broke out, quite honestly, George, was Toronto International Airport. You walk in, 100% of the people were wearing masks. Everybody was completely social distancing. They had quite a process. Obviously, the travel volume is way down, so it was pretty easy to stay 12 feet apart, which we could. So the overall experience was good, but no, there's no question. I actually got caught just hold my mask down a little bit as I was watching Netflix on the flight, and they came over and said, "Nope, back up." So they're pretty militant about it on that flight for sure.
No, that's good. I mean, that's good to know. So, how do so right now the border between Canada and the U.S. is closed.
Yep.
We hear rumors, or at least it's been stated on a few different publications that may be the case for the next year. Do you buy into
I
that?
hope not. We certainly hope not. It was just extended for a month officially into middle of August, I believe, is the new deadline, George. But it's been what a time, right? You and I have been road warriors for many years. I was scheduled to be home in Q2. I was scheduled to be home in my house here in Toronto 4 nights total. So obviously that turned from 4 nights into 90 days. So let's get the border open when we can go get together and do our events and get together as an industry again. Whether it's open or closed right now, I don't think there's a lot of travel going on. Regardless, so it's the whole thing's immensely unfortunate for all for everybody. I think it's just the ability to make sure there isn't transfer of Canadians and US, why pollinate each other right now when there's really no need. You
No,
can fly to the US. I mean, the
oh,
one of the misunderstandings is the land border is closed. I
mhm.
could get on a flight today and come down and visit you.
Is that true?
That is true.
Well, see that's a misnomer. I think everybody thought that there was just a wall that went up to the space.
No, we haven't built a wall that high yet on this parallel. On the 49th parallel, it's still open, but you can fly over it.
Good to know. Good to know. Well, if there's something interesting, then I'm sure you'll find a way to get here. So that's good. Or vice versa. So for people who have never run into a Dan Wensley before, and there's only one that I know of, give everybody a quick stroll down professional lane, right? How did you start and how did you get to today?
I got extremely lucky. I stumbled into this industry well over 20 years ago, George. I didn't have an email address. I know I'd never used email when I stumbled into the channel.
Wow.
I was
Not even
actually
AOL?
no, sir. I was in the newspaper industry overall, and the only reason I was able to transform into IT was because I understood the subscription-based model business. And ISPs of the time were subscription-based models. So I was able to translate knowledge around subscription-based businesses into the ISP community, and that gave me my start. And then I learned email, and I've been privileged, George, over the last 20 years working with some of the best people in our industry. For really emerging technology companies is where I found my sweet spot and passion for the change, the evolution, the adoption, whether it's technology or service delivery model. That's what has inspired me, and I've been lucky, with Warranty Master, with Passportal, with Level Platforms over the last 15 years to really, have an impact, I think, on the industry.
So you literally came out of the print newspaper business. They probably didn't even have websites up and running at that point.
Oh, it was the only multi-billion-dollar industry that put all of its cash flow through the hands of 12-year-olds. So it was quite. I remember to this day. It was a newspaper that I worked with outside of Toronto, and the head of subscriptions went to this emerging dot-bomb company and invited me to come. And I met with the ownership, and literally, George, I knew nothing. I said, Kevin Litwiller was his name. And I said, Kevin, I'm not even coming to this interview. I know nothing about, it was internet set-top boxes, believe it or not, on
Really?
33.6 modems. We couldn't wait to release our 56K modem. That was a big one. But I just understood the ISP industry and quickly learned and fell in love with our channel industry. And the rest is gray-haired history.
Fair enough. So once you left the internet business, so Level Platforms, I think people pretty much, who have been around for a while remember that. That's where, the infamous team all started, right? Rob Ray, you had a bunch of industry veterans on that team.
Dude, I'm super proud of every one of those individuals. If you look, Alicia Vetter is head of marketing at ASCII. Everybody knows Rob Ray. There's nobody who's run with it better than Rob. But a lot of the Datto Canada division was the original sales force that Rob and I hired 15 years ago. They've done incredible. Dave Sobel was a part of that team. I would argue to this day that was the best original channel team in the marketplace, and all of those people super proud to have watched their careers absolutely flourish and carry on. It's been inspiring.
Yeah, so that's in the NFL here, we talk about the coaching tree, right? Hey, this guy spawned these coaches who went on and won Super Bowls, right? So I feel like that was your coaching tree, right? That was the heyday.
I got pretty lucky. We did DattoCon a couple of years ago. It wasn't last year. It was probably 3 years ago, George. I think there was 18 to 20 former Level Platforms employees at that event, and we all snuck onto stage and took a picture together. Rob was there and a whole team. So it's great. We've got, I've got partners at ConnectWise and formerly Continuum, and we went to AutoTag. I mean, they're all over the industry. It's fulfilling. It's great to see. They're a great group of people.
That's awesome. So needless to say, and I've kind of asked everybody who's come on board in one form or another, you've seen a couple of dips in the marketplace over the years, right? And probably, like 2008 is one that everybody brings up with the banking crisis, and then there was like an early 2000s one, like 2011, 2012-ish one that kind of hit. So give us your opinion on like what was, how did people make it through those versus what's happening now? I'm curious to see the differences.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, all the way from dot bomb to Y2K, the early 2000s was certainly 2008 was the tipping point. And early on, George, we said, and you heard this statement made over and over. Well, the pandemic's coming. We had to do the economic shutdown, but we know when it's going to end, and we're going to come right back. Certainly, one of the things we've realized here lately is that it's not going to be that cut and dry. There is an economic downturn. I will tell you that I look back on 2008 as being an accelerator for our industry. I think it accelerated. It was a hard time. There's no question about it. But it matured the industry very quickly. When gas, and in that recession, gas prices went up, if you remember. And I remember Rob and I saying, how do we get transitional, break fix partners to make this transition to managed services? We'd been out there in the marketplace for a couple of years already. And the tipping point was, can you afford to roll a truck to your customer anymore and not get paid? Mm-hmm. And so it actually did accelerate. The sort of the transient revenue of break fix, George, was not going to work in an economic downturn. It was that drove recurring revenue, that drove managed services. And again, I think, what we're going through here, I'm sure everybody's used the word unprecedented on your show over the last couple of weeks. That's because it's true. But there are so many great stories of innovation. We're going to come out of this better because of it. I saw at Warranty Master, I've been here, 13 months, George. And in talking to partners, I started 3 days before DattoCon last year. And I walked into DattoCon.
That was a quick turnaround. The announcement came out. You were at that.
Yeah, I was there. But it was incredible to talk to partners and to have that environment that DattoCon put on for us, George, to talk to literally hundreds of partners of Warranty Master and learn the business and learn our value to those partners in such a short period of time. And one of the things that they really identified was, wow, you're really helping us drive hardware replacement revenue, and we've never done hardware as efficiently as we had previously. And you and I have been around long enough to remember when managed service came along, we kind of said, who needs hardware? Forget hardware. Right? It's about recurring revenue. It's about services. I talked to many MSPs. We're out of the hardware business. We'll give it to CDW.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
Come full circle, dude. Like it is literally come full circle. Where as IoT and I looked at this and said, warranties. I've done password security and I've done the original RMM solutions. I'm not going to get into what an incredible misconception that I had even originally in my first conversations with the founders. It was, wow, this is incredible. And again, the market's come full cycle. Today we're at 7,000 partners in 76 countries. And I would say our impact for partners is the same or more than the original RMMs, the PSAs, some of the new vendors, certainly in the VoIP business, everything. We're right there helping partners with really traditional work and automating that process.
Well, I mean, so zooming out a little bit, when the pandemic hit and everybody went and scattered like ants, you basically ran out of places to buy stuff. Like you couldn't even get stuff for the most part. Like there was a bit of a shortage in the supply chain, if you would. Like you could go to the electronics store and cross and hope that you could find something for it. So one of the things that seems to be coming up, like when you back when they first started this company, since we're on that topic, like one of the things that people always struggled with was, and I'd like to get your opinion on this since this is what you're doing. As an MSP, should we be covering unwarranted? Like if I have a Dell machine that's 3 years out of warranty, I'm like, well, it's time to replace the system, right? Like some people have different opinions on, hey, we charge an extra tax on the machines that aren't covered versus the machines that are. What's that? What are you seeing as like this status quo on this?
It's a great question. And again, this is where the evolution and maturity of asset lifecycle management has really come, George. It is, and I'll make a pretty bold statement. It is almost irresponsible for an MSP to have a server inside an SMB outside of a warranty service coverage. It will cost you more as the MSP to fix. It will cause more increased downtime for your customer, and you are doing them no disservice by not selling them an extended warranty to ensure that the service is going to be there, the parts are going to be there, and that they're under coverage. Now, that said, always replace hardware when budget allows. If you can get your customers to say every 3.5 years, 4 years, we are swapping all this gear out, put that in your SLA, and some of best in class do that. Absolutely do that. That we help do that. Our application helps drive a heck of a lot more hardware replacement than it does warranties. But when you don't have that opportunity, economic downturn, George, perfect example. Hardware budgets are being slashed left and right. They want that server that they spent $8,000 on to live longer. They're not going to replace it or even move to the cloud necessarily. Get that under. We've seen a 50% increase in the warranty services that we sell through to our partners just in the last 90 days.
So general metrics, if you have them.
Sure.
Workstations versus servers. I assume people extend their servers more than their laptops and desktops.
Today, yes. Is that going to change? I believe so. So servers, and I'll give you some round numbers and big data. We have about 10 million devices under management.
Wow.
80% of those are workstations. So we have about 8 million, call it, workstations, about 2 million networking and servers. And the other 2 million that's left over is IoT, imaging, and other. Okay. So there's no question. Now, when you have workstations that are 80% of the assets, and they're not going to replace them as readily as they normally once would, is extended warranties on those workstations viable, important, going to help you drive top line revenue as an MSP and protect your customer? The answer's got to be yes. So I think, again, in an economic downturn, we've been known as a warranty lookup tool. We've been known as a hardware forecasting and replacement. Warranties has done really well for our partners, but a small percentage of them, frankly, to date, George, that is growing exponentially. We have had more partners buy their first warranty from us, again, in the last 90 days than ever before. And we've also seen, again, a 50% increase in total volume.
So let me ask a question then. Like, when I go pitch a customer a new computer, right? There's multiple different options. There's send it in for repair. There's somebody comes to me to repair. Like, so sometimes the MSP's like connected with the manufacturer, and the manufacturer like pays them to go do the hardware replacement. Like, what is this? Like, what is the level of warranty here?
So let's take servers as an example. So we offer next day shipping on all parts. So the majority of partners, they know what's wrong and they need the part. So having under an extended warranty, you can have a technician go out if you don't diagnose the problem yourself, or you can have just the part shipped to you immediately. So as the MSP in servicing your customer, you've got the part, you can go in to service it, but hundreds of our partners also have the warranty services group go out and do it. And we even saw this during the pandemic, George. They were PPE prepared. Most local MSPs weren't arguably prepared to walk into a pandemic. By doing it with a services division that this is all they do, we were able to walk in and protect a lot of MSPs as well. So there's nothing but a win-win-win. To your point, I want my customer to replace their hardware. We help them identify that and report on that. But again, in an economic downturn, or just they want to put it off for a little bit, get it under an extended warranty. It's revenue for the partner. It's more security and more uptime for the customer.
So two things immediately just came to my head. One, why this route versus going back to the manufacturer and trying to extend it through the original source? That's number one. Hold on. And number two, let me just get out of my head because I'll forget it. Number two, why this versus the other mentality, which is stock parts on the shelf, and just do it in-house?
Yeah. So let's take the first one. So one of the things that Warranty, far before I arrived here, one of the things Warranty Master did was simplification and automation, which are two cornerstones to managed services. Not only we don't just resell extended warranties, we actually automated the entire process for the MSP. When I talk to partners, I said, well, what's it like getting for, okay, I got to check that dashboard, then I got to go to the OEM website, then I've got to go back. It was it was cumbersome at best, George. At worst, it cost you a ton of time. And frankly, one of the reasons why extended warranties weren't as popular as they were is too much time and effort. So
Yeah.
we completely automated that system inside the application. You can go from identifying the opportunity to clicking a couple of buttons, having the warranty coverage done, and making your margin immediately. So automation is key. We do have partners who use us and only buy OEM. Do I think it's the right thing to do? It's totally up to them. I had a great lunch with a partner last time we were allowed to travel to an event. Said, Dan, I'll never buy non-OEM. That's fine. Guess what? When the economy turned down, OEM prices here, we're able to offer it here at higher margin. So if you want to save money for your customer, we're a great option for that. But I would never profess to say if you only want to do OEM, go do it. Our application can still help you sell more of that.
Okay. And then, but what about, again, the guy that says, hey, I'm going to buy the computer with whatever the warranty that it comes with, and then I'm just going to start stocking hard drives and power supplies and RAM and, what?
If you've got money to invest in capital expenditure to sit on a dusty shelf, rather than monetize it to provide the service, you actually want to sell to your customer. So that's only a cost center for you, not a revenue center nor a profit center. So it's saying, hey, Mr. Customer, I'm not going to put you on a warranty. Don't worry. I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in equipment, and I hope I've got the right part at the right time. The more money you have, I guess the more option you will. But why bother? Why do it? There are stocking stations all around North America. They do this for a living. Go sell the service to your customer rather than taking on the expense.
Lo and behold, our friend Tony pops in with a couple questions. So here we go.
I watched Tony's session last week and I didn't bug him with questions, but I appreciate it.
All right, here we go. Question number one. What tools will Warranty Master use to assist MSPs in managing customers and their equipment warranties? So I assume that, tools meaning
integrations.
Tony, clarify. Are you talking about their PSAs?
I speak, George. I speak Tony, so I think I know what he was asking.
Okay.
I think he's talking about integration. So to collect the data again, the original concept of the platform was as a warranty lookup tool, George. Yep. Many of the RMMs look to try to do this, but it's very complex. You need diversity of integrations across all the platforms, all the RMMs, all the PSAs, all the documentation. So we aggregate all of that data and then check it against the OEM and deliver that information autonomically right to the partner. That's always been where the deficiency is in this entire process is A, the data collection, but B, actually cross-referencing it with the data from the OEM and giving it to you in real time.
Fair enough. Second question, it's a funny one. Does Dan think we will believe that he actually won that hockey trophy behind him?
Tony, I love the fact that you asked that. That is a 1953 MVP player won by my father. Who was drafted to the NHL. So you're absolutely right, Tony. I didn't win it. That is my father's. There's also a picture of my dad's hockey team right there getting dressed. So anyway, it's thanks for pointing that out, but that is my father's.
Quick question on the rebuttal here. So NHL's coming back. What do you think? What do you think of the plan?
I have my Travaris Maple Leafs jersey hanging right beside me here, George. I placed a bet last year in Vegas. I got 12-1 odds for the Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. I don't even know what they're doing with those tickets and whether it's still valid, but I have it right here in my wallet. I think we're taking on Columbus. Anyway, long story short, we need this. Boy, do we need something else, right? We can't watch CNN or whatever anymore. Or I think I've watched all of Netflix. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting hockey back in whatever form they can bring it to us safely.
Awesome. I think we're all ready for it. Trust me. Okay. So coming back to, hey, 2020, we're going into the, for the rest of the year, going into the next year until this is all behind us, right? How do you suspect, or what would you suggest MSPs do to try and stop bleeding in terms of reduction of, covered employees, assets? Like, what is the, do we go out there and start doing other revenue lines that we normally wouldn't do? Like, what are you hearing out there?
There's two trains of thoughts, George. One is like, okay, now's time to innovate. Now's time to go look for other revenue streams. I will tell you that's probably a good idea, but I will tell you what we've seen. First of all, there was an enormous spike in the number of assets being managed by our partners immediately following the shutdown. To your point, it was hard to get gear, but everybody went home. I'm sitting here with 5 devices in front of me. I work from home normally, but for a lot of them, our own asset count went up at Warranty Master. When I sent all of our employees home, we were buying new gear for them. So there was an immediate spike. So yes, you can get innovative. Yes, you should look for new opportunities. I will also tell you, we've left a lot of money on the table because the economy was so good. And I think there is an opportunity to retool. And again, self-servingly, warranties is one of the examples of that. We wouldn't be seeing a 50% increase in our sales of warranties if that wasn't a viable option during this period. So get back to basics, lower costs where you can. Operational efficiency remains king. Rob Ray and I were saying it 15 years ago at Level. It remains accurate to this day. And look where you can. The number one thing I've learned from partners, George, listen to customers. I'm listening to partners, and those are being successful. Their common denominators, they've listened to their customers. What do you need? How can we help? We are the trusted advisor here. This is the beauty and the elegance of the channel, is the ability to adapt to whatever market condition we're in or whatever needs the SMB throws at us.
Fair. What is the, there's got to be, from a standardization standpoint, there's a little bit of a wrench in that plan, because the home computers, the residential gear off the shelf from, here in Best Buy for me, right? Like, they bought whatever they could get because there was limited options in the beginning, right? I mean, webcam seems to be the most popular buy on the planet. So like, I got to think that they're going to do what they got to do for now, but in the long term, there's a standardization nightmare coming now.
It's a great example, George. This is the trajectory we were on, right? Standardize, get everything operating the exact same way in the exact same environment. Well, this just threw a giant wrench into that, right? It was the kids' computers were coming onto the corporate networks, and hardware, to your point, whatever they get their hands on was being added. New devices, IoT has exploded. So I think, again, we were on this trajectory of standardization. Diversity isn't a bad thing as long as you can monetize it. The only reason we were going to standardization was because it would lower our service delivery costs, because we could process drive everything if we always knew what the gear was. Well, that's out the window. So how do I monetize my MSP now? Guys, you just threw added complexity into this network. I'm here to handle it for you. It's going to cost X, Y, and Z.
So would you tell people that, so number one, it sounds like there's a balance, Dan. Here's where I'm coming from. There's the, hey, I don't want to kick you while you're down mentality, but there's also the, I need to get paid for my work mentality, right? Is there a blueprint for how you kind of give people a break versus charge them? I mean, there's not, it seems like there's 1,000 ways to slice it.
There is. And if you find the blueprint, George, let me know. But I will tell you that if you're not going to generate the revenue because they don't have it, they don't have the cash to give you, that's very different than, hey, I'm struggling a little bit. Can you help me out? We're all struggling a little bit. Can I help you out? If somebody can't pay you and won't pay you, that's a very different discussion than, hey, I'm just looking to cut costs. I would argue, and I know MSPs should be able to validate, IT infrastructure is mission critical. And I'm not going to look to take budget necessarily out of my IT, because that, if I don't have Zoom right now, George, I'm out of business, right? Yeah. Slack and Zoom are keeping all of us going right now. So it is mission critical. So it's value versus, expenditure and price point. But again, we used to say in the day, George, fire your customers who won't go to managed services, fire the ones who aren't profitable. that hasn't changed. And if they're not profitable because they can't pay you, yeah, you don't have a business relationship unless you believe there's opportunity to pull through with them for value at the other end, right? So it's an ongoing balancing act.
No, okay. So let's follow that thread for a second. What is your opinion on the bronze, gold, silver? What's your opinion on the multi-year versus the, exit whenever you feel like? And then with that in mind, there's people who have used the, hey, we're just going to add time on the back end, or, hey, we'll defer your payments until, right? So I'd love to understand your opinion on just the blueprint, right, that everyone seems to have been following. And, does it make sense, that strategy?
Well, let's start with the long-term commitment. Okay. So what was the long-term commitment supposed to do for us, George? Protect our revenue. Well, the pandemic comes along, the economic downturn. You don't think there's long-term contractual customers coming back, knocking on your door saying, hey, so did it actually protect you? No. Did it give you some legal probably coverage? Sure. If you want to go down that road, nobody's rarely going down that road, right? So I think the misconception and belief that a long-term contract protects you in any way from something like this that happens, which does happen, this is the longest period in, I think, U.S. economic history where we hadn't had a recession or an economic downturn, right? 08 to 20. So I will tell you that when I joined Warranty Master, one of my first mandates was we need to make our partners understand we're a revenue generating application, not just a lowering cost operational efficiency application. Because I said back in 19, if and when, and I expected a recession to hit at some point during my tenure here, if we're only a cost savings application, we're going to be gone. You need to be driving revenue. And we really doubled down on that. But I will tell you, we've doubled down on it again here since the recession, because we were doing a pretty good job telling partners. A lot of partners were seeing us as a revenue generator, but not enough were. And now we've really been beating that drum and hopefully helping more partners. But it was the economic downturn that really, put the fire under our butts to get out there and make sure that message was communicated.
It's interesting you say that, because our friend Tony, who says that he loves you, by the way.
Why don't we just bring Tony on this thing, George? Why don't we just invite him in?
Should we?
We should. Bring him in.
Promote to a panelist. Let's see if he's
Let's see if this works.
Attire, right? We can just add him onto the call. Tony, whenever you're ready, feel free to join us. I've escalated you there. But in the meantime, one of the things Tony was saying last or on Tuesday was, hey, MSP should be evaluating their stack of vendors, software, tools, apps, whatever, at least every 3 years. And then we started talking about what that looked like. So to your point, I guess your advice to the other vendors in the space is, hey, providing value in terms of saving time and economy is great, but if you're not revenue generating, you're going to be the first one cut when they're looking.
We saw it in the RMM business. We when the 2008 hit, George, we had partners leaving us, and Rob and I both sat there and shook our head. How is this possible? We were a foundational remote monitoring and management platform, and partners are saying no. I'll never forget the quote, George. One of the partners, who I know to this day, said to me, my CFO said, if it's not revenue generating, get rid of it. And I fought with this guy, said, look, we're the foundation. We're lowering your costs. You're just getting into remote versus, transient break fix revenue and having to roll. He said, no, that was the line in the sand. If it's not revenue, and I'll never forget that statement.
Wow. If that's pretty clear cut, there's no room in that statement. That's interesting. So then let me go to this other part, right? There's this idea that we all drank the Kool-Aid too hard from an MSP view, right? The idea, there he is. There's an idea. Let me finish this thought, and then we'll have Tony, give it some love. There's this idea that going to the trade show, keeping your credit card out and handy and swiping as you're going booth to booth was, actually hurt people, not help people, right? Because they ended up buying and they never implemented, right? That's still a challenge today, though, Dan, right?
But I'll tell you, yeah, George, you're on the vendor side. You get it. You understand. We as the vendors don't want that either. Okay. There is no interest. We have no desire. And frankly, it costs us more money when we have a partner come in half committed and then exit. So onboarding is a big challenge for vendors. Let's get some vendor secrets out into the market, right? Onboarding new customer. Yes, we all want new partners. That's why we all go to trade shows and we communicate our message. But bringing you on for you to fail in 3 months or churn out is a waste of your time, a waste of your money, and same thing for us. So I think I love the early adopters of technology. We wouldn't be anywhere without it, but let's be diligent. Time and effort are the two biggest components to a good relationship between a vendor and an MSP. The money, forget about it. If you have the time and if you can put in the effort to be successful, I would say on any trade show floor, George, there's not a vendor you can't be successful with on that floor. If you adopt it, it's a part of your technologies, and you're committed to do it for your customers because you see value in it, there's no need to fail. The amount of partners we had back in the RMM days who went from Kaseya to Enable to Level Platforms to SolarWinds to GFI.
It's still happening, man.
Dude.
It's still happening.
And I think Tony will agree with me. I know why. If you're failing with an RMM, 9 times out of 10, it ain't the RMM, right? We all had our challenges. We all had features we should have had or didn't have or could have had. But make a commitment and see it through and be successful.
Interesting. So now I'm going to ask you both the same question. I think you have different answers here. Tony, you don't believe in onboarding fees. Is that correct?
Good question, George. Here we go.
First off, and I want to apologize about the delay. 2 things first. First, I absolutely love you two and have the utmost respect for Dan. Secondly, the delay was caused because I had that translator. I couldn't understand the Canadian accent. It wasn't, so I had to turn off the translator and then coming on board. It took a while. So I apologize about that. And so to answer your question regarding onboarding fees, I believe in the concept of a frictionless commerce experience from A to Z. Removing as many barriers as possible while trying to achieve exactly what Dan said earlier about what is driving revenue. Now, cost savings is great. And the reality is there could be a whole bunch of revenue driving actions taken, but if the resources needed is kind of a big investment, especially in today's economy, probably not going to go very far. Little investment for a huge cost saving, or I'm sorry, no investment for a cost saving. That's a kind of a no-brainer. But little to no investment for a revenue driver. Now you're talking, because in any type of economy downturn, there's going to be attrition. And so what you're trying to do is compensate that by either bringing on additional revenue or cutting costs.
But Tony, there's a lot of driver buyers that will absolutely take it for free and then do absolutely squat with it too, man.
Well, and therein lies the interesting argument, because now the argument is, hey, do you have to have, are you in for more sales? Or are you in for sticky customers? Because what Dan was saying earlier is, hey, they're going to come in and in 90 days they burn. What does that really, what does that really account to?
That's the balance, and that's the challenge, Tony, right? Like, George, there isn't a vendor on the planet making money on onboarding fees. Yes, there are lots charging for it.
Dan, we're supposed to be arguing right now, so hold on.
We're going to. Don't worry, we're going to. I like when I argue with you and you're not close enough to put me to the ground. Onboarding fees are done for a very simple reason: time and effort. And to your earlier statement, George, of don't just walk around a trade show floor with your credit card out. We as a vendor don't want that. And you as an MSP shouldn't be doing it because you're not committed to it. Onboarding is a cost center for a vendor. So if I've got 100 MSPs say, you know what, I'll take a look at that. And I've charged onboarding fees, and I'm going to tell you why. And we have a free trial program at Warranty Master because we're easily adopted. It takes minutes to set up. Partners get a value immediately. I will tell you, with something like Passportal, that wasn't the case. You had to come in, get trained. You can't just load passwords into an environment and not know how to secure them and all the protocols. So onboarding was a requirement. And if I did it for free, I'd go out of business, because I'm just asking, give me a couple of $100 to show me that you're committed to doing this, and I'm going to train to the absolute best of our ability. but I can't make a $200 investment to train you for you to go, yeah, I just, I went over here because I'm looking at this vendor now. That's the only reason why onboarding fees are charged: time, money, and effort. I want to secure your time and your effort with your money. So it's if you had a partner say, I'm doing this 100% and I guarantee you I'm going to be successful and here's how, I'd waive that onboarding fee in a split second.
Mhm.
But we as an industry, and this is nothing against, and frankly, it's the advantage of the IT industry that we have to adopt new technologies. We have to look at them. So it's a catch-22. We need to look at new technologies, not all of which we're going to implement are going to make sense for our business. So where's the value? You as an MSP, don't do anything unless you are willing to give me $200 to be onboarded. You shouldn't be actually buying it, in my opinion. Because if you're saying, I'll do it for free and see how it goes, that's not a win-win for anybody. I don't want any partner to waste their time and effort.
My two-word response for Dan is, you're wrong.
Right,
no, I'm totally kidding. I'm just trying to be confrontational. Yeah, he's right. I think the automation, the onboarding is critical, and he kind of illustrated that with Passportal, and the ease of onboarding kind of limits the what on the back end we refer to as the non-recoverable engineering fees. And so if we're doing an integration with a company and I'm saying, hey, listen, I'm going to invest 60, 90 days of my time, I have non-recoverable engineering fees that are on the back end that no one will ever see except me and you. So let's do an investment to make sure we're both going to do this together, because we're going to do the heavy lifting, but you got to help me pay for that. That being said, if you want to do onboarding fees or whatever is going to happen on the front end, great. We're eating it on the back end on the integration side. But that's from the technology side.
Because Tony, we could charge more for the product and just build in onboarding fees into the price of the product. And then it's not a SKU, it's not a line item, it's not even a conversation. The reason that's not done is because if I build it into I'm mean, critical, bitter, old guy. But if I just build it into the fees, that doesn't guarantee the commitment and the success of the partner later on. Give me the $200 show. I'll put up, $100,000 engineer for an hour of his time versus your $200, and we'll make the success. Let's get in this together as partners. But don't just come in and take time and then, move on.
Well,
I would argue the demarcation point, and tell me I'm wrong, 6 months. Started IT Nation in November. By May or June of the next year, if they haven't implemented it, that's when it's going to churn out.
Well, the interesting word that you used there was partner, and I think that really is such an overused, cliched word, and it actually hurts the term, because what's happening is the partnership is, let's say you do have an onboarding fee, but somebody who's actually a partner invests in that. You know what you're willing to do at that point? Waive the onboarding fee, because they're actually acting like a partner. It's no longer a vendor-customer relationship where here's the charge, here's what you're going to get, but they're actually doing some level of investment. Maybe it's their team is better at onboarding in some capacity, or a level of commit for customers that compensates for the onboarding, the non-recoverable engineering time on the back end on your side. But that partnership experience is so fascinating, and we're more and more starting to experience this with our partners, with our MSPs, and we're trying to do everything we can. Now I have to go get a marketing team and help them market their stuff out, as opposed to just build the cool stuff on the back end. So I love that you use that term, because you're using it correctly.
Yeah, it's always been, I had a huge debate over this. It's treat them like a partner, but act like they're a customer. Because what I hate about the term partner, Tony, is sorry, that bad release. Sorry, we're partners. That's not acceptable, right? I need to treat every partner like a client, like a customer, but have the relationship like a partner. We are in this together, but that is not an excuse for any failure.
Okay, so here's the next one, and it falls right after this. Tony, you think the NFR should be just part of the deal, right? I would love to hear Dan's opinion on that.
I don't know if you were trying to be as divisive between me and Dan as possible. Like, what can I do to completely sever the relationship?
Listen, there's no severing. You two come from completely separate backgrounds. You have different views on this. Sure. And this is the stuff that's talked about in the hallway. I want to hear it. Let the people know what your opinion is.
What's an NFR, George? Would you tell me what? So
Can I
set
say
us
what
up? Give me a value of an NFR.
Well, let me give you my opinion of it, because maybe my opinion is different. Maybe that's what's causing the rift.
We'll find out, Tony.
So an NFR license, a not for resale license, is typically provided by the vendor to the reseller to consume and internally and almost practice the consumption internally, so it's easier to display and resell consequently. And there's typically a limited amount of those NFR licenses provided by the vendor. That's typically traditionally capped
Are they
off.
good or bad? Are they good or bad, Tony? Get to the point.
I love them. I think they're amazing. I'm a huge fan of the best way to sell a puppy to a kid is to give it to him for 3 days. You're never going to get it back. I'm a huge fan of give let's say 3 to 5, 10 NFR license to every single reseller. It's good for 6 months. And if they have a customer, great. They keep the NFR licenses capped at 10. If they don't, then guess what? They're either paying for it or they ditch it. And you figure out really quick.
George, you're striking out on controversy, my friend, because I completely agree. We do 150 free trials every single month. NFR is absolutely a way to give value to a partner to try it. It is the counter to the onboarding fee, because if we were going to use it as a non-NFR, then it's charging for the license. That's kind of like an onboarding fee, right? So we agree on the onboarding fee, the reasons why, and the value to both parties that it may represent. And I completely agree on the NFR. I want every partner to be successful with it day one and move forward, whether that's onboarding, whether that's a free trial or an NFR license.
I mean, are we giving it all away? I mean, we're giving them no onboarding. We're giving them the NFR for unlimited until eternity.
No, I didn't say that. I said charge for the onboarding when it's a requirement that you as a vendor need to gain the commitment of a partner, and I want partners to understand the onboarding there is not there to take your money or to rake you over the coals for the $3 or $5 or $1,000 you might charge for. It's to cover the cost and measure the commitment of the pursuing partnership.
What if the NFR, what if they pay for the onboarding, they turn on the NFR, they never sell a thing? Now what?
For the vendor standpoint, bluntly, George, at least we have covered some costs. Right?
So
it's a failure. It's a
engineered obsolescence. Why not say the NFR? And this is where the technical back end, the automation, which equates to scalability, comes into play. And this is literally all I think about every single day, is how can I do something to set it, forget it, and it'll auto expire, engineered obsolescence, or when acquired a new customer. And I threw out this. I had, by the way, after the last podcast, George, multiple vendors called me. Hey, at the 45-minute mark, you were talking about NFRs. Can we talk about that? Because we have a distinct difference on. So I'm of the belief, and I'm throwing this out there. This is a Hail Mary, by the way. It scale it down. I believe that if we can say to a vendor, give me 10 NFR licenses that I can give to my hundreds of MSPs, my partners, 10 each, and they don't have to use it right away, but we say, if you activate this service, you now get 10 for 6 months. And at the end of the 6 months, we will tally if you have a minimum of X amount, let's just say 10 licenses underneath you, meaning a combination of 5 seats in one customer, 5 seats in another customer. If they're paid for, you get to keep those 10 NFR licenses internally indefinitely until you have less than 10. And it's our responsibility to A, calculate that, and B, provide, here's who have the licenses, here's how many licenses are out there and pending, timelines, et cetera, to the vendor. But the point is that I believe that I think 20% of the top are going to start producing customers right away. Congratulations. 20% of the bottom are probably never even going to use the software at all. And in between, there's going to be a combination. That bulk of it is going to be a combination, but I challenge that a big chunk of them are going to just say, hey, we didn't have a chance to actually go out and sell it because it hasn't hit our technical refresh window where we actually, we identify software we want to put in our stack and sell to our customers, but we actually like using it. So we are going to pay for the software, which means you just acquired revenue. And I'm of the belief that will work because there's almost no effort from the vendor. There shouldn't be any effort from the vendor side. It should all be done from, the distribution side.
It does, Tony. But the other thing is, don't just do that and cross your fingers and hope. Our goal, our mutual goal between the partner and the vendor, is to take that. There are going to be a percentage who never, just for whatever reason, have to get distracted. There are going to be some who just take it and run. You're right that the middle portion of that 80 percentile, it is our mutual desire, both by the customer, the partner, the MSP, and the vendor, us, to make more of those guys successful. How do we do that? That's been the magic of this industry. Is it better onboarding? Is it better materials? Is it 5 more licenses? Will that be the difference for you to be successful? Those are the magic we need. What I can't excuse, both from my own team and any potential partner, is nobody wants to waste anybody's time or money. When we did onboarding fees at Passportal, and I hated it, but knew it was required because I needed that level of commitment. And I'd say, do not give me your money. Do not spend your time unless you're committed to do this, because it's worked for thousands of other partners. We're either going to do this or not. Now, knowing some will, majority did. But that's what I love about the onboard. It's really a barrier. Before I take your money, I want your commitment.
Okay. All right. Next question. Cheesesteak or meatball sub?
There is for everyone out there listening, there's a story out there, and I'm not going to get into the specifics or the long history of it, but at the end of the day, I never ever thought a Philly cheesesteak was anything. Everywhere I went, it was nothing, and even to the outskirts of Philly, I was like, nothing. So George is offended, like at a deep level, and says, Tony, when you get here, this is where we're going. And of course, it's no big. I'm like, whatever. And just to hedge my bets, because I'm really hungry, one of us gets a cheesesteak, and I said, I'll have a meatball sandwich. Hey, we'll just split just in case. I'm a big fan of meatball sandwiches. I think each of us took a bite out. We're fighting over the remnants of his cheesesteak. It was amazing. And from that, you have earned a deity status, in my opinion. Like it was magical. It was a life-changing event. So yeah, well said. Why don't we go to something more controversial? And I should drop, because I love hearing Dan. And every time I listen to him, when I'm not saying that I listen to him often, I hate listening to him, but I do learn something every single time. Why don't we talk about the topic about what is worse? Is it country music or Canadians?
Oof. These are very combative questions.
Tony,
here.
Our border's already closed, my brother, so I can get away with a few things right now.
No, you guys continue your talk, and you guys are amazing. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Take care, guys.
Got a great session on Tuesday. I listened to.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
All right, couple closing thoughts here, Dan. If you were asked by one of your partners, one of your former partners, an MSP, at the restaurant down the street that you stumbled into on the sidewalk, what is the best advice you can give me to get out of 2020 intact? What would you give him? What would you tell him?
Throw the old playbook out and build the new one. I think everything has to be reevaluated and relooked at, because we were on a completely 180-degree view. I will tell you, George, we were scheduled, and the example is Warranty Master. I'd been in the role for all of half of 2019. We're coming in. I spent most of 2019 planning for 2020. We had I added $1 million in salaries in the first 45 days of this year.
Wow.
And we're planning to do huge things. We had so much money allocated to events. We were going to be out on the show floor, higher than anybody. We were even higher sponsorship at DattoCon, IT Nation, all of them. I think I said to you earlier, I was scheduled to be home in Q2 for 4 nights. We threw that entire playbook out, and we said, okay, here's the new reality, and here's the new thing that we're going to do for the remainder of 2020. And we stuck to it. There was rumor, events are coming back. Are you guys going to? No, we decided on March 16th, we were not going to do another event in 2020. Now, I'd feel horrible if events were going on right now, George, and I was missing out on them. It would be killing me. But we had to make the decision. There's only one track we can go down, and we want to execute to it in a defined plan. And that would have been the track now, turns out not a lot of events are happening. But again, it could have gone the other way, but we would have stuck to our plan because it was the right economics. So I think retool, reevaluate everything. And I'm not saying throw out vendors or retool or do any of this stuff, but I would take the time to sit down and reevaluate.
Okay, fair enough. if somebody came up to you on the show floor and said, "Hey, waive your onboarding fee and tell Tony Francisco to go scratch, but I want half off," you do that deal?
So I have to waive my onboarding fee. I get to tell Tony off, and I give a 50% discount.
That's right.
I don't have an onboarding. I would buy the guy a beer. If he tells Tony off, I'll give it to him for free.
Okay, well, there you go, guys. No.
This is a partnership. Our products are priced at an opportunity for us to make money, continue to innovate, continue to provide value to partners, and for partners to make money in the case of warranties and things like that. So we don't have an onboarding fee. Again, I've run that model before in the channel. I am a supporter of it because I think it's the right thing to do for the partner and the company itself. With Warranty Master, I'm blessed. It's free trials. It's so easy. This is the most automated application I've ever been a part of, and it's a great place to be, George, both for partners and for Dan.
Where do people find you?
warrantymaster.com or dan@warrantymaster.com is my email.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this was entertaining. This was a good one. You know, three-way in the ring WWE edition, I think. Dan, I'm hoping that it sounds like we're not going to see each other in person before the end of the year, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of virtual happy hours left in the hopper.
Yes, sir.
If by chance an IT Nation or something like that pops off towards the end of the year, if things settle down, I hope we do get a chance to have a beer in person.
I'll be there if the opportunity's there, at least to fly in and see friends. So
for sure.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. See you next Tuesday, and then Thursday after that, 1 o'clock Eastern, MSPinitiative.com. This session is recorded, and you can go back and rewatch all of those, those battles. And make sure to send Tony, your comments directly. He'll
hate mail. You mean hate mail for Tony?
Right, exactly. Have a good one,
Thanks a lot.
guys.
Thank you, George.